Hi, we're back at our pajama pant or shorts pattern, and we're now going to be working on steps 6 through 9. This step basically involves the pocket, and I have to say these are the most difficult steps of the shorts pattern, maybe along with elastic. Okay, so what you're going to need is you have your pattern pieces, you have your read them, the directions. And I'm working with, just right now, I'm working with two of my pockets. These two pockets will be what we're going to call the front pocket. Um, Also, I need my two pieces of interfacing. And hopefully you got two pieces that are, are not identical. You should either have the two smooth sides together and they should look like that, or the two bumpy sides together and they should look like that. If you have uh, the smooth side up and the bumpy side up and they still look like that, you've got two of the same pieces. You need to have two different pieces. I'm going to show you by laying out my pockets on my table. I have one pocket right side down, the wrong side facing up. The other pocket should look like this. See, the pockets are different. They're aimed in different directions. This is one interfacing piece, and this is the other interfacing piece. Remember, we've worked with interfacing before. We're putting the pressed side, the bumpy side down to the fabric. And then I'm going to go to the iron and press that. Now, one thing I want you to do, if you are planning on making shorts yourself, again later, and keeping the pattern, I want you to trace one of these for yourself onto paper, binder paper, typing paper, photocopy paper, so that you have this to keep, because I did not give you one of these. So this is the interfacing pattern. Okay, you only need to trace and keep one. So again, I'm placing those back as you saw them in the video, and I am going to go and press them on to my fabric. My iron's been getting warm. Chair out of the way. So again, right side down, wrong side up, bumpy side to wrong side of fabric. Again, remember, I'm not going to iron, I'm going to press. And make sure this adheres very well. You do not want this coming up. Okay. My iron had cooled off, so I'm going to come back to that. It's not adhered enough, but I'll get this one started. Notice again how I matched it at the top, and this is matching at the bottom. It's cut around the curve. That's what that curved edge on the bottom of your interfacing was for, to line up with the curve on your pocket. Again, I'm not ironing, I'm pressing. I can check to make sure this is adhered well enough. Can I peel it off easily anywhere? And the fact of the matter is it's starting to peel up here at the bottom. I'm going to hit that with the iron one more time. This piece, remember my iron wasn't hot enough? It wants to come up, so I'm going to make sure that it's secured. I can press on the other side, just get it, make sure it's stuck on there good. Okay. All right. Now the next part is going to require a pencil. If we had proper marking tools at home, we would use them, but you probably don't, and I never bought enough for everybody to have one. But this is easy. I'm going to take my pattern, and what I'm going to do is trace this little box onto my interfacing. So I'm going to put this down. Now I made a little slit here in my pocket where the notch was. You should have a little slit on each of your pockets. That's very important. That is where you're going to match it to the front of your shorts. So basically I line this up, and using a straight edge, you're probably most likely going to have a ruler at home. I happen to have one of these fancy little quilting grids. Basically, that is almost a half-inch half-inch. So I'm going to trace onto my interfacing. I'm just going to lift it up, and I'm going to trace the lines at the end. And the lines here. And now I'm going to match that with my straight edge. I'm going to draw from there to there. I'm going to check my work. It's a half-inch. That's great. I'm going to do the same to the other piece. Hang on, one of your parents is texting me. Okay, so I want to do the same to the other. I'm going to just place my pattern piece. This time I'm going to have to lay it face down to match, right? Okay. I don't have my slit did not make it through all the thicknesses. So I'm just going to go back and cut that again. Remember, I'm not quite making it a 1/4 inch. I don't want to cut through my seam allowance. Now I'm going to just pull this back and mark those lines here. With pencil lead seems to work just fine. Don't use a marking pen. It might bleed through and you don't want ink on your project. And then with your straight edge, you're going to complete that box. Okay, and we have that mark transferred onto both of our pockets. Great. Okay, going to consult the directions. Step 6 was cutting the interfacing, which was done for you, except that we needed to transfer that seam line on there. Pin pocket with interfacing to front, right sides together. So I have one thing I like to do when I'm sewing garments, especially that have lots of pieces, is I like to keep my pattern piece pinned to the fabric until I'm ready to work with it. That way I'm not going to mistake it for the back and suddenly attach something to the wrong piece. So I like to keep it. It tells me what it is. It's my front. I'm going to take my pins out now, and I'm ready to now I have a notch right here on my pattern, and you should too. Now we drew it a little too big, but I did cut it in there, so that's what I'm going to match the notch on my pocket with. Okay, I'm going to read that step again for my directions. Step number 7, pin pocket with interfacing to front, right sides together. Remember, right sides, no matter whether you're using kitties or something different, it should be the pretty part of your fabric. I'm putting the pretty side to the pretty side, the printed side, colorful side to the colorful side. So here I have one of my, this is actually the leg, the side of the leg, and that's the seam where my pocket's going to go in. Now notice, this pocket, if I'm going to match my notches, that pocket's going to be going the wrong way. So this is not the side of the pocket that I want to use. It's hanging way off the edge here. I want to use this pocket. And I'm going to go ahead and match my raw edges. Please match. Make your seams even. And match my notches there. Raw edges pretty even. Pin, pin, and pin. Now, so I have those two pinned together. Important that I match these notches, because one year we didn't match the notches and our pockets were way too low on our pants. Okay, so you don't want your pocket down at your knee. Okay, so this is going to be waistband up here where we put our elastic, and then your pocket's just going to be just below your elastic a few inches. All right, so I would do that to both pieces. Again, right sides together. Here, this time, sorry, here's my side seam. Here's my notch right over here. I'm going to match that notch with this notch, pretty sides together. And I'm matching my raw edges, and I'm going to pin that. Okay. Pin pocket with interfacing to front, right sides together. We've done that. We've matched. It says notes. Miss Hitson's a musician. It should say notches at the outside leg seam. Stitch following the stitch line mark. On both pockets, am going to stitch only on that pencil marking. Let me see if I can get this one closer. I am not going to stitch all the way down here. I'm only going to stitch on the pencil line. So I'm going to do that now using the straight stitch on my sewing machine. I'm going to do it to both pockets before we go on to the next step. Okay, use the balance wheel, bring it towards me. Remember, again, we're always going to start with our needle and the fabric. On your mechanical machines, you may walk it a few stitches in so it doesn't get tied up in knots. I'm not going to walk it on this machine. It's not meant to do that because it's computerized. It does a little more for you. Okay, when I get close to that, this is where that pivot stitching on paper comes in handy, because I walked it right into that corner, left the needle in my fabric, and I'm going to do a pivot stitch there. Then I'm going to come down, staying on the pencil line, getting close to my pin. I'm going to remove it. If you're going to do more sewing, and I hope some of you will, you need to first invest in the magnetic pin plate. They are wonderful. Remove my pin. I'm coming close to that bottom pivot stitch, the end of this long line. Okay, I'm going to walk it into that corner, lift my presser foot, turn my fabric. My machine is a mile away from me. Let me move it closer. Put my presser foot down. Don't forget to put it back down. Your machine will sew with it up. It won't sew straight. It'll get all tied up in knots, but it will sew. Mine would tell you that you had not lowered your presser foot. That's kind of the beauty of the computerized machine. But they do cost more money, and there's a whole lot more wrong that can go wrong with them. Whoops, I got a back stitch. I forgot. If you want a back stitch, you can. Otherwise, you can tie an old-fashioned knot there. Just back stitch. Okay. All right. For the sake of the video, I will not do the other one now, but you would. I need to tie a knot here because I forgot to back stitch. Just an old-fashioned granny knot. I pulled both the threads to the same side of the fabric, and I'm tying a knot over and over and over again, 3 or 4 times. Then I don't see my thread scissors here, so just cut that off. Okay, this is what it looks like sewn in place. There's a seam allowance here. It should be a 1/2 inch. Okay. Going back to my directions. I am still on step 7. I am going to clip using sharp scissors. I'm going to clip to the corner, but not through the corner. And I want to clip diagonally. Can you see that angle I'm going in there with? I mean, I'm going to clip as close to that corner as I can, but not cut through it. Okay. Now, I am going to trim the seam allowances to make them a little thinner. I'm going to trim them, they're a 1/2 inch now. I'm going to trim them down to a 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to trim them in half. I took that much off. Okay. And do it here as well. Okay, now the next step, number 8, you're going to turn the pocket to the wrong side. Well, turn it right side out is what you're doing. And you're going to when you've done it correctly, it should look like it did. I'm sorry, my screen went to sleep and I need it on to see you're seeing. And I want that to turn up there like that. See how nice that lays? Now I'm going to, if I had done, you've done both pockets, and both pockets should look like this. Right now I am going to go to the iron and I am going to press this so that it's nice and crisp. Make sure that you've worked out the seam allowance so that it's not, it's out as far as it can be. You don't want it to be bigger than that 1/2 inch, or smaller than that 1/2 inch, I should say, because you haven't pressed it out all the way. Let me press that and I'll be back. This makes the nicest looking pocket. The first time I helped students make this, I thought it was hard, but if you follow the directions, it really isn't hard. Okay. So that looks really nice. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch. We top stitched along the edge of our zippers and our zipper pouches, and we're going to do the same here. And when we top stitch, we want to go right along the edge, about a 1/4 inch or maybe an 1/8 inch from the edge. I'm going to sew right along that edge. I don't need to round the corners necessarily, because that's going to be caught in the seam allowance, but I need a top stitch there. Let me read that step just to make sure. Pin pocket to wrong side, press, roll seam of pocket to the inside. If desired, top stitch the pocket opening 1/4 inch from the edge. So I do desire, it is, and I want you to do this step. It's just a very nice finished step, and it will hold that pocket in place when you wear it and when you wash it. It's just a much nicer looking pocket. Needle down in the fabric to start with. My machine ties a knot for me, so I did that there. And I have a 1/4 inch mark on my machine that I'm following. Remember, I'm not watching the needle. I will never sew straight as long as I watch the needle. I want to sew watching the 1/4 inch line. Okay, I'm going to tie a knot again, or I could do it by hand. Why do it by hand when this machine will do it for you? Okay, all right. There is our top stitch pocket. That looks nice. Okay, that's 8. Here is step number 9 and our final step. Oh my goodness, the crazies are out on the road. I don't know if you can hear them race car driving out there. Whew. They like to drag race on Hanson Avenue. Don't you ever do that. It's so dangerous. Okay, now I'm going to take, remember I had you cut 4 pockets? Okay, here's where the others come into play. Now we are going to pin with right sides together, the pretty side down to the pretty side, And this is going to hang over that edge of that newly, yeah, it's going to look like this from the outside. Okay. And I'm going to match the raw edges over here. I don't want to pin through the front of my shorts. I only want to pin through my pocket, my 2 layers of the pocket. And so I'm going to pin around my pocket. And use as many pins as necessary. You want to hold it well. We're pinning again, the pocket front to the pocket back. Okay. We're going to stitch together and then the pocket. So I'm going to start down here. Again, I don't want to sew through the front of my shorts at all. And I'm going to sew from here to this front edge there in one seam. Again, my seam allowance for this project is 1/4 inch. Normally we sew garments at 5/8, but in this project we're doing just 1/4 inch. So I put my presser foot down, I put my needle in my fabric, and then I'm going to sew following that 1/4 inch line. Now this is kind of like where we practice those circles. You're going around a curved edge. Make sure you go slow. You can do it. Make it as uniform and as straight as possible. I'm going to come up to about 1/4 inch away from the edge of my pocket here, and I'm going to pivot stitch again. Needles down on my fabric, I lifted it, and I am going to sew off the edge of my pocket there and tie a knot. Okay. Now, this is what it looks like now. There's my seam allowance. It's not very wide, it's only a 1/4 inch. Remember when we did the inside of the zipper pouch, how we finished the edges with a zigzag stitch? I want you to finish the edges of the pocket with that same stitch, that same setting that you had before. So I'm going to set my machine quickly. Yours is a knob on the front. Most of you try to use some sort of zigzag stitch. I'm going to do mine and show you that. I'm going around the edge again, but this time I'm allowing the stitch to go off the edge of the fabric to hold the fabric so it won't fray as I wash it. I did the same before I pre-washed your fabric so that it just wouldn't, flannel will turn into threads if you're not careful. So I'm going to try this stitch here again. Okay, rounding the corner, doing that last little piece. Okay. And this is what how clean and nice my edge looks now. Okay? You will do this on both pieces, both front sides. You'll apply a pocket to both front sides, and you've now completed through step number 9 of the Shorts project. Congratulations. I'll see you in the next video.